My name is Alyssa. I've been married to my husband Smith for 3 years. I work as an insurance sales agent. Although I have flexible hours, I work on commission, so sometimes I get home later than Smith. During busy periods, Smith has always been there for me, running his small business. We had a pretty good arrangement. I didn't have much time for housework, and Smith didn't mind doing it. But the issue has always been with my sister-in-law. My in-laws are really great people who have never mistreated me. However, sister-in-law is super attached to Smith. From the beginning of our relationship, she's been causing me problems. Despite multiple warnings from my in-laws, Smith has always taken her side. We argue about it now and then, but since we only see sister-in-law a few times a year, I didn't make a big deal about it. However, that doesn't mean I don't hold some resentment towards her. For example, I like a particular brand. While I don't splurge on it, I do buy things I want from my own savings or by working extra hard. She once accused me of getting those items from Smith and even stole from me. This happened when we went to my in-laws' house for a Christmas visit. When we walked into the living room, sister-in-law was already a few drinks in. "Ah, Smith, you're back. Yeah, you're already drinking. It's Christmas. Come join me." "Oh, all right then," as Smith was about to say, but I interrupted. "We haven't even greeted everyone yet, and we're not staying the night. You know, if you start drinking now, we won't be able to drive home," I said. She scoffed. "Geez, what a strict wife. It's fine. Smith can just stay here. Why do you need to go back together?" I retorted. "So that's what comes to your mind before even saying Merry Christmas?" She then annoyingly leaned on Smith and whined, "Smith, Alyssa is bullying me." I was so disgusted by Smith's failure to push sister-in-law away that I headed to the kitchen. "Mother-in-law, Merry Christmas," I said. It seems that mother-in-law was so wrapped up in preparing a full-course Christmas meal and party that she didn't hear our exchange. "Oh, you're here. Sorry, I didn't notice. Merry Christmas." "Is Smith not here?" "Smith is in the living room with sister-in-law." "Oh, Smith didn't even greet me. I apologize." "No worries, it's not your fault," I replied. As she said that, mother-in-law headed towards the living room. I followed her and found Smith evidently unable to refuse an offer to drink with sister-in-law. Mother-in-law saw this and said, "Smith, what are you doing here without even saying hello?" "Well, Nora was feeling lonely, so we decided to have a drink together. You should have greeted us first. I was wondering why only Alyssa came to greet us." I couldn't turn down the drink. Smith mumbled something, looking down, but I ignored him and took my seat. Just then, as I put my purse on the chair, sister-in-law perked up and started talking. "Wow, is that a new purse? Nice." I had a bad feeling and promptly placed the purse back on my lap. Sister-in-law looked visibly annoyed and said, "I can't afford one, Smith. I want one too." "Well, I didn't buy it then. Give me Alyssa." "What? How dare you say that? You don't have to give it to her. It's expensive, right? Who would hand over an item worth at least a few thousand, especially when it's practically brand new?" I gave sister-in-law a dry laugh. "If you want one, go buy it yourself. You live at home, so if you work decently, you can afford it." True. Sister-in-law lives at home but only works part-time about 3 days a week. She probably can't even afford the cheapest purse I own. This new purse was a favorite of mine, reserved with a deposit as soon as I heard from the shop clerk that it was coming in. There's no way I would easily give that up, especially not to sister-in-law. Then Smith started saying something outrageous. "Hey, give that to Nora." "What? You have plenty? It won't hurt to give away just one. Do you even know how much it costs? If you have so many, what's the problem?" "No way, I even paid a deposit to get this. Stingy. Could you please not talk like a child? Are you even an adult? I've just started using this brand new bag, so I can't give it away. I have no intention of giving away any of my other bags either." Stingy? With that, sister-in-law stormed off to her room. Smith also stood up, following her. "You went too far, and since you're not giving it, you should apologize." I won't see my sister-in-law after Christmas, so it doesn't matter, I thought, but I was wrong. A few days after Christmas, as I was preparing to go to a hotel lunch with my friends, I opened my closet to grab a purse, but it was missing from the bag where I stored it. Frustrated, I went straight to Smith's place. Smith seemed upset to see me walk in, but began to look anxious when he noticed I was holding the empty bag. What? I don't know anything about it. Maybe you left it at your parents' house, he said. I haven't even said anything yet. Don't you know you gave it to your sister, didn't you? I retorted. I told you I don't know. Maybe you left it somewhere like at your parents' house, he insisted. Fine, I'll search your parents' house. Then, I'll also call them. If I don't find it, I'm reporting it to the police. It's an expensive bag. If someone broke in, that's a big deal, I said firmly. Smith turned pale at the mention of the police, but quickly retorted, even if the same purse is there, maybe Nora bought it herself. I took a card out of the shopping bag and showed it to Smith. It's a limited edition with a serial number. There's no way it's the same. My sudden visit surprised them, but they let me into my sister-in-law's room. When I explained the situation, my purse was easily found in the messy room, but it was in terrible condition. The bag had remnants of food and drink stains and seemed beyond repair. Even my mother-in-law was at a loss for words. Suddenly, my sister-in-law, perhaps realizing someone was in her room, barged in, shouting, "What are you doing? I told you not to come into my house. Just give me back my purse." "Actually, you can keep it. Just give me the money back," I demanded. "What are you talking about? I bought it, probably coordinated with Smith," my sister-in-law said, smugly. I told her the same thing I had told Smith. "I've already explained this to Smith, so you should pay me back." "But Smith gave it to me. It's mine, and it was a gift, so it doesn't matter," she insisted. Here was my sister-in-law acting like a child even in her 30s. It was more pathetic than annoying. At this point, my head was starting to hurt, but wasting a few thousand was out of the question. "All right, I'll file a police report. It's theft, right?" My mother-in-law reacted. "Please, no police. She's still my daughter. I'll cover it, and Nora can pay me back from her salary," she pleaded. My mother-in-law looked at me with tearful eyes. It tugged at my heartstrings, but I couldn't let it go. "How about sister-in-law pays from her salary instead? If there's even one late payment, I'll file that police report," I suggested. "What? Why should I pay?" my sister-in-law protested. "Be quiet. I won't let her go out. So I'll manage her bank account that her salary goes into until everything is paid back." "This doesn't make sense," I insisted. I left my mother-in-law to handle the situation and went home, still pondering how to deal with Smith. Then a plan came to mind. I'll probably end up divorcing him, but it doesn't matter anymore. The day of reckoning was approaching. Months later, the day had come. We had gone to my in-laws' house for some reason. Today was the day our new home would be finished. We had been invited by my in-laws to celebrate, and my bag was packed with divorce papers. The atmosphere was pleasant at first during the dinner. I might not even have to hand these divorce papers over, I thought. But Smith disappointed me as usual. "Hey, I wanted a house too. Give it to me," he demanded. Just as I suspected, my in-laws' eyes bulged out at the ridiculous request. Father-in-law choked on his tea, and mother-in-law was speechless. And then I waited for Smith's response. "I'll give it to Nora. She won't be able to buy a home anyway. We can just build another one if you oppose. We're getting a divorce," he declared. Too bad. I wished it was just drunk talk, but he looked serious. I hated the face he made, smiling while leaning on sister-in-law. Sighing, I said, "Fine, let's divorce. You can have the house." "What? Yes! Yay! I got my dream home." Sister-in-law was jubilant, but I didn't care. "You get your dream life with sister-in-law in our home, Smith," I remarked dryly. The contrast couldn't have been starker. A jubilant sister-in-law, a frozen Smith, and me. I handed over the pre-filled divorce papers with a smile. "I would have reconsidered if you'd objected. Good luck," I said. Smith seemed to realize what I meant and seemed deeply apologetic, but I had already left the table and didn't look back. In hindsight, maybe I should have watched his reaction. A few days later, we discussed asset division through lawyers. My in-laws must have talked some sense into him as he agreed rather easily. Months passed. I was living alone in an apartment I bought before marriage, peacefully taking care of my cat. Then, sister-in-law showed up. When I opened the door, there she was, deeply apologetic. "I'm sorry, help me," she pleaded. "Who are you? Don't talk like that. We were family once. I don't recognize people like you as family. You're the one who said that, right? Besides, we're divorced, so we're literally strangers now. Please, I can't make it on my own, I replied firmly. On a closer look, my sister-in-law was in rags. No wonder Smith's earnings were less than the average temp jobs in the area. I said I'd leave the house, but I never said anything about continuing to pay the mortgage. The mortgage built around my income would be too much for Smith to handle. I bet the loan alone would swallow up his paycheck. Originally, the home was built so I could live there with Smith. But now I don't care anymore. I never thought Smith would earn so little. Neither did I. Smith is what you'd call a freelance writer. If he writes, he makes money. If he doesn't, well, no income. Smith hates working. He gets sick if he has to do regular work outside. So, a regular job is out of the question for him. He's tried it before but quit after a few months. So he was content doing housework while I was the main breadwinner. I provided almost all of our living expenses, and even the down payment on the house came from my savings. I found out that Smith boasted about how he funded our lifestyle and splurged on luxury items without contributing to living expenses. And when we got divorced, I learned he had even taken on debt. Want to guess what the debt was for? Presents for sister-in-law? I knew something was off when I saw high-end clothes and accessories scattered in sister-in-law's room. Items she couldn't afford on a part-time job. My suspicions led me to discover thousands of dollars in debt on Smith's credit card. Sure, he could pay it off if he worked. But let's be real. Someone accustomed to a laid-back lifestyle isn't going to suddenly work hard. Why not sell the house then? We've been caught off guard by Mom and Dad. They've sold our house and moved away. If we sell, we have nowhere to go. That caught me off guard. While my in-laws had always been soft on my harassing sister-in-law, I thought they would never actually abandon her. But it seems they had finally reached their breaking point. No surprise there. With Smith falsifying his income and stealing the house from me and sister-in-law sticking to him like glue, and then there's the home loan in tens of thousands of dollars, even loving parents have their breaking point. It's what you chose, right? A home with just you and Smith. But Smith told me to sell my gifts, to work because we can't sell the house. That's on you. It's painful to see a 32-year-old crying at the doorstep. Actually, Smith is 10 years older than me. And believe it or not, sister-in-law is 8 years older than me. It's just pathetic that no one had set them straight before. But that's a separate issue. Why should I help people who've mistreated me all this time? I'll be going freelance a month after the divorce. I have my professional connections from my diplomat days, so I'll be just fine. But that's for my future, not for the downtrodden sister-in-law standing in front of me. Now please, can you at least take over half the mortgage? I couldn't help but burst out laughing, which enraged sister-in-law, her face turning beet red. What the heck? I'm begging you. Let me make this clear. No, I won't pay the mortgage. Why should I pay for a house I no longer live in? But you're the sister-in-law. So I'm no longer your sister-in-law, got it? If you keep this up, I'm calling the cops. Do you want a criminal record too? My sister-in-law was startled by the mention of the police and scampered away. It's likely that Smith and she will have to fend for themselves from here on out. They're both adults. They should get what they want with their own efforts.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.